I have already told you about Al-Biruni. Now the next traveler who came to India is Ibn Battuta in 1325. When Ibn Battuta was 20 years old, he started traveling. As he wanted to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is called as Hajj, as all Muslims want to go today also. So he wanted to go to visit Mecca. He was also interested to go to so many places as he established himself as a traveler. But in actual, his traveling time went about 29 years, and during which he almost covered, as on record, 75,000 miles distance, and this was actually equivalent to that of 44 modern countries. Children, during his traveling, he had much adventurous life, and also he met with many dangers on his way. Like once he was attacked by bandits, and once he was almost drowned in a sinking ship. He had a few marriages, lovers during his traveling, and he also became the father of many children. All this happened during his traveling. Today, we can easily read the traveling stories of Ibn Battuta in Rihla, My Travels, which was written on the insist of the Sultan of Morocco during the end time of Ibn Battuta's life. Dar al Islam is the area inside the black border which was made by Ibn Battuta as he mainly traveled to these countries which had a Muslim rule. He also had made or established many small Muslim communities during his travel in various regions of the world. Ibn Battuta's memoirs and his travel to India. As far as in traveling to India in 1334, Ibn Battuta arrived in India all the way through the mountains of Afghanistan during the time when Tughlaq dynasty was there and it was at its height. On this, on his approach towards Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq, he learned that the great Sultan liked to take gifts from his visitors, and in return, the Sultan used to give gifts which are of far superior worth of visitors. Ibn Battuta, on meeting with the Muhammad bin Tughlaq, presented him with arrows, camels, 30 horses, slaves, and some other goods. In return, Muhammad bin Tughlaq responded him with a welcoming gift of 2,000 silver dinars, a furnished house, and the job of judge with an annual salary of 5,000 silver dinars. So ultimately, he got job in Muhammad bin Tughlaq's court as a judge. Now, since he was born in Tangier, here is the route where from he reached, as I said, that he came to Mecca all the way from Tangier. You can easily see from where he started, and he went to this area of today we call the Gulf region, and the complete area he traveled, and then he came to India. From Afghanistan he entered India and traveled. In the memoirs of Tughlaq dynasty, Ibn Battuta studied and wrote about the history of the famous Qutub complex and also about Quwwatul Islam mosque, and last but not the least about the famous Qutub Minar. He has discussed so many things in his writing, and many important things he has discussed as a Moroccan traveler and writer. He has written about the uncertainty of those times. He has written after traveling across Central Asia and visiting the cities of Bukhara, Samarkand, I told you, he set out to visit the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He came to Delhi, and according to Batuta's records, he and his companions were received by Vizier, and there he got the job. And it is Batuta's chronicle which gives us an insight into the postal courier system. He has discussed very prominently, first of all, about the postal courier system that was operational in India. The system is said to have employed a horse courier stationed every 4 miles and a foot courier stationed every mile. The courier would be handed a box which he would run with for a mile and pass it along to the next courier. Ibn Battuta's account also discusses about yogis who would perform magic tricks on the streets and notes the practice of sati. He has discussed very prominently about the sati system in India. He discusses about the sati system and condemned the sati system. He did not like that. Then he has discussed about the yogis. He has discussed about curious snippets about the supply of the pan and betel nut to the imperial capital, which is said to have come from Chanderi near Gwalior, now famous for the saris. His descriptions of trees and fruits are most interesting, with an adoration of the jackfruit. He has discussed about the jackfruit also, which he termed the loveliest of all fruits in Hindustan. He says jackfruit was very much liked by the people of India. He was intrigued by the mango, and he writes about the mangoes. The mango fruit, is about the size of a large damask prune, which, when green and not quite ripe, which is unripened, and happen to fall, they salt and thus preserve them just as lemon is preserved with us like a pickle, he has discussed. In same manner, they preserve ginger. So he has discussed about the ginger and the mango pickle in his memoir, and also pods of pepper, and this they eat with their meals. Batuta would chronicle everyday life, nothing that a mango and a ginger pickle was, and accompanied to meals. He also details various pulses and chicken cooked in ghee. Royal feasts, noted Batuta, began with round bread, that means chapatis, roasted meat, and he has discussed about samosas, which he has written as sambuksa, and chicken served on a bed of rice, finally followed by dessert like halwa and almond pudding. Batuta's descriptions of Muhammad bin Tughlaq cast the king as an eccentric man prone to severe fits of temper. Ibn Battuta also gave a detailed description of how the magnificent city of Delhi was after Tughlaq compulsorily moved every resident of Delhi to Daulatabad. Even the blind and the lame were not spared. So, this way he has tried to tell that the ruler was very, very strict in making the uh, royal orders to be followed by the people. He writes, the Sultan was far too free in shedding blood. He used to punish small faults and great without respect of persons, whether men of learning or piety or noble descent. Every day there are there are brought to the audience hall hundreds of people chained and fettered and are executed, tortured, or beaten. So this is the way how he has criticized Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reign. An opportunity to leave the disturbing court presented itself when the Emperor of China sent a large embassy to Delhi. Muhammad bin Tughlaq sought to send an equally grand mission with valuable gifts to China and appointed Batuta as the ambassador to China. He has discussed in his memoirs. However, on the way, the mission was intercepted and looted by the dacoits, as I have earlier said, and Ibn Battuta just about managed to escape and save his life. Ibn Battuta then decided to travel south. He mentions the magnificent fort of Devagiri. He has traveled to South India also, from here to towards the south, and he has discussed about Devgiri, renamed Daulatabad by Tughlaq, with its massive walls stretching 3 miles. He makes a mention also of the Marathas living in the region and described their food. The food of Marathas consists of rice, green vegetables, and oil of sesame. They carefully wash their food. From the Deccan, he travelled down south to Malabar, which he described in detail. The whole of the way by land live under the shade of trees, and at a distance of every half mile is a house made of wood in which there are chambers fitted up for comers and goers. To each there is a wall out of which they drink. Upon everyone's arriving, they cook and pour out a drink for him on a leaf of banana, and whatever he happens to leave is given to the dogs. Ibn Battuta spoke of the great trade taking place in Malabar through the ports of Calicut and Kollam. He is talking about Kerala. He has talked about the Kerala Muslims also. He mentions the fabulous wealth of the merchants there and how the favorite food of Kerala Muslims was a dish called rasoi, made of rice, meats, and coconut milk. Ibn Battuta stayed in Calicut for 3 months before he left for China. On the way, he, like a dedicated traveler, he took a break in the tropical islands of Maldives, calling them one of the wonders of the world. This is where his travelogue through India ends, but so many things still he has discussed in his memoirs. If we talk about the legacy of Ibn Battuta, until the impact of the travels of Marco Polo on the European world, the accounts of Ibn Battuta's travels had only modest impact on Muslim world before the 19th century. While copies circulated earlier, it was French and English scholars who eventually brought the travels of Ibn Battuta the international attention it deserves. So, Ibn Battuta traveled and he died in 1368 or 69. The place of his death is not known, nor the location of his grave. All we know about Ibn Battuta's life after the writing of his book is that he held the office of judge in some town or other. Since he was not yet 50 when he stopped traveling, he is thought to have married again and to have had children. So, Rihla is an important memoir, and the scholars had to compose the whole story into a literary form using a type of Arabic literature called Rihla. And in Rihla, he has discussed all the things which he has seen in India, and he was a great traveler of that time. And Rihla gives actual actual scene of India, and he has written Rihla in a very critical manner when he writes about the ruler, when he criticizes about the ruler, it gives a very, very true picture uh, of of that time. So it is a great testimony of those times. Thank you very much.